Connecticut.
Perfect. And which war did you serve, John?
I served in the Vietnam conflict.
Okay, and what was your branch of service?
U.S. Navy.
And what was your highest rank?
My highest rank in the Navy was Machinist Mate 3rd.
Machinist Mate 3rd, and that's a E grade of?
E3.
So just in general, what locations did you serve? Just kind of give us an idea of where you were.
I went to boot camp in San Diego. From boot camp, I went to Vietnam, landed in Saigon, was relocated to Vung Tau, where I met my ship, USS Tutuila ARG-4, which is a repair ship for PBRs and Swifts. I was with the river people over there. From there, I was assigned to the floating dry dock in New London, Connecticut, which took in fast attack submarines and the old diesel boats at the time that we had a few left. From there, I was supposed to be transferred to another duty station. They transferred me from the floating dry dock in New London to Barracks Mast at Arms in New London, where I took care of working parties and of people getting out of the service. I took them to each station they had to go through to clear posts. So.
Oh, I see. So part of their out processing.
Right.
Okay. So we'll start from the beginning, John. Were you drafted or did you enlist in the service?
Enlisted.
You enlisted. And can you tell us what was your thought process about enlisting? Why did you enlist, especially at the time during Vietnam? This is 1968.
Well, I didn't want to be drafted into the Army. So I figured Navy wasn't that much involved in Vietnam. If it was way offshore, didn't have to worry about getting shot at or stuff like that. And there's Navy all over the world, so getting go to Vietnam was very small.
Right.
And so, as soon as I got out of boot camp, that's the first duty station I got, Vietnam.
Plan well laid out and
didn't work.
So you were pretty sure you were probably going to be drafted. Did you get?
I was looking at joining the Navy, and the guy says, "You're most likely going to be drafted. You're not going to college. You're not, you don't have anything." And at the time back then, they were sending people over there like crazy.
Okay. So where were you living at the time before you joined the service?
I lived in Warren, Michigan.
In Warren, Michigan. Okay. What was the reaction? Do you recall the reaction of your parents and?
Well, my dad was a merchant mariner, so in fact he even tried to get in the Seabees same time I did, but they rejected him because he had bad hearing, and he couldn't get in. And my mom says, "If you go in, I'm going to kill you." So you won't be able to go in. But, no, my mom was nervous as a mother would be. And I says, "Don't worry. What's the odds of me going to Vietnam?
Yeah, right, exactly. But she felt fairly comfortable with you going to the Navy.
Navy, right.
Yeah. She knew your draft number was coming up too, probably.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah. See, everybody my age back then was going in.
So, go back to those first days when you left Michigan, headed toward your basic training. Where was that at? And tell me about your first experiences.
Well, I went down and signed, got sworn in Detroit. As soon as I got sworn in, they asked for volunteers to go to San Diego instead of Great Lakes. So I'd never been on a plane before. So I says, I'd never been to California before. I says, I volunteered. Yeah. So I volunteered. I went to San Diego for boot camp and went through boot camp. To this day, I still remember my boot camp instructor. First class, scary. And he lived up to his name.
That was his name? That wasn't a nickname?
No, that was his actual name, last name, Scary. And he lived up to it.
So what was it like those first few days? You remember anything you recall particularly about those first few days?
Well, we got there kind of late on at night. I don't remember the exact day, but I got there kind of late at night. And we got put into a barracks. And next morning, as you see in the movies, damn garbage can came down the middle of racks, and
Mm-hmm.
lights came on and says, "Get up, and you're going to get your hair cuts," and things like that. And it was kind of interesting. Then we went to breakfast, and as anybody knows that's been in the service, that while you're in boot camp, everywhere you go together.
Yeah.
March in unison all over the place. So,
Learn to march from day one.
yeah. Even though you don't do much marching in the Navy.
Do you have any experiences during your basic training? Unique experiences that you had, or memories?
No, just I remember, going through hanging. We in the Navy, we had to wash our own clothes on a cement on these cement tables with a brush
Oh, really?
and a bucket of water, and we got our collars. You're out there brushing your stains out of your collars and rinsing them. Then we had to hang them up, but you didn't use clothespins. You used rope ties, and you had to make each knot had to be a perfect knot, and it was hung up on these like you call on these lines with rope ties, and the inspector would your guy that's in charge of your group, if he didn't like your knot, he undid it and dropped it to the ground, and you had to do it start all over again. And they were just trying to make you a better, get you so you wouldn't go crazy on a guy and stuff like that.
Right.
And it was interesting, You came from home, your mother did your laundry, and she folded up. You had to wash it, let it dry, fold it up, and it had to be in a certain way in your locker, and everything had to be lined up, and your bed had to be made. I never made a bed before in my life. My mom always took care of my bed, and I still don't like making beds to this day because of that. No, them are the things I remember about it.
Yeah.
Learning, how to tie knots, how to identify insignias, and officers and enlisted men's insignias, and doing calisthenics, and going to the different classes, and chemical warfare where you get the gas mask on. They put you in a room, they light off the tear gas, and then they tell you to take your mask off and breathe. And anybody who's been through that knows how bad that gets. Then we were in damage control school, and we got put in this room with double walls in it, with holes on one side. They started filling up the walls, and you couldn't start patching the holes until the water got up to your waist. And
Really?
and then they wouldn't stop the water coming in until the water all the plugs were stopped. And when we got done, I remember one time we were about that much air from the top of the ceiling. It was kind of scary. We knew they wouldn't let us die, but
Right.
still you get a little concerned about it. But
Every sailor went through that training.
yep, back then anyway.
Yeah.
Especially if you're on a ship, your life depends upon it. They'll grab anybody to save the ship.
Yeah.
Whether you're a cook or an ice seaman or whatever, you're going there to save that ship.
You've heard the term, every sailor is a fireman.
That's right.
Yeah.
I've been through fighting school.
That was part of your basic, or was that after?
Well, both. I went to firefighting school in basic, then I went to advanced firefighting school later on.
So, when you enlisted in the Navy, did you have a specific job that you were?
Well, I was supposed to be a machinist mate. Or not a machinist mate, but a machine repairman. Because I've worked on lathes and drill presses and things like that. When I was in high school, I had extra time, and instead of having no class, I just went into, teacher got me into a special program with, I did all the repair work for all the machines in the machine shop.
Okay.
So that I was very adept at working with that stuff. But when you get aboard a ship, wherever you're needed, that's where you go.
Yeah. So when you finished basic training, did you go to a school for your job, or where did you go after basic?
Right to Vietnam, to my ship, USS Tutuila.
Right to the place you was hoping to manage to avoid.
Yes. The very first place out of boot camp was Vietnam.
And did you find that out before you left boot camp?
I got the orders before I left boot camp.
You got a little vacation time?
I got about 2 weeks before I had to report to San Francisco International.
And you went back home for that 2 weeks?
Yeah, I went back home for 2 weeks.
And what was that like? What was the...
Well, my mother was all upset, of course. And I told her, well, I'm going to be offshore. Don't worry about it, And so we had our good times and seen all my buddies were still around. And then I flew to San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Got there an extra day early and got to enjoy San Francisco for a day, ride the trolleys and see the hills and all that stuff. And then I went out to Traverse Air Force Base and was stuck there for 2 days because they didn't have enough planes to get everybody out. And finally we got out and we flew from Traverse to Kodiak, Alaska, from Alaska to Okinawa, Japan, from Japan to forgot the other little destination, then flew into Saigon.
A little tour along the way.
24 hours flying time.
Yeah. So you started saying we. Did anybody else travel with you that was in your basic or?
Not in my basic, but people I knew.
People. Oh, really?
Actually, I met a kid at the airport, and his mother and my mother got to be friends, and he was stationed on the same ship I was. So that's how we got to be together.
So you landed, you're in Vietnam.
Right.
Not on a ship right now.
No, in Saigon, yes.
Right. So what was going through your mind then?
I said, hey, this ain't supposed to be the way it is. So then we went through customs. Then we all got on a Navy bus and went to the Annapolis Hotel in downtown Saigon. That was a barracks, basically, that they called it the Annapolis Hotel. And you got given your bedding and mosquito netting over for the sleep underneath, because the bugs were big over there.
Yeah.
And next morning I got up, they assigned me temporary duty to guard the ammo dump. And the ammo dump was behind me, and then had some CBs working to the right of me, and the street was on the left of me. And they gave me a Thompson submachine gun, which is a heavy damn weapon.
Yeah.
With 6 clips. One clip, actually, there's 2 clips in the machine gun, taped back to back.
Yep.
And then 2 other clips taped back to back just below me.
Yeah.
And they said, you watch the armory for the next 4 hours. Well, I'm so used to CBs making noise next to me, I didn't even hear them quit. And this young first lieutenant comes up to me and taps me on the shoulder. And I went out of my seat and I shoved the machine gun up his throat, under his chin. And he says, son, they stopped working over there. Make sure you look over there. Okay. He was scared too. Here I am with some machine gun up his neck. So that was one of my first experiences with carrying a weapon.
You had weapons training and basic training?
Oh, yeah. But it's like the M1.
Oh, okay.
Never fired a Thompson.
Oh, really?
No. They just said, here's the safety. Keep it on until you need to shoot it.
Wow.
Shoot short bursts. Because it'll go up in the air as you shoot.
Yeah.
Which it does. I've fired them before. Or since, rather.
Yeah.
And from there, I got sent down to, which I was very surprised, to a Coast Guard base in Vung Tau.
Really?
Yeah, Coast Guard was over there, which I really didn't think about. And for 2 days, I filled sandbags on a working party to get my day going. And then my ship came in, and I was ushered out to my ship by a small boat. And then that's when they told me, well, we don't need anybody machine repair, but we need somebody in the boiler room. So you're going to the boiler room. So, and over there, it's already 100-something degrees. And you go into a boiler room, it's like 125 degrees.
I was gonna say it sounds hot.
It's very hot. You're constantly drinking water. You're on a 8 on, 4 off, or 8 on, 8 off for duty. 24-hour rotations. And I got to meet one of second class Michael Callahan from Alaska. He was getting ready to get out of the service, and he was a fuel and water king. And he asked me if I'd like to help him, and I said sure. And so he got the chief's permission for me to get out of the boiler room and go to that. The only thing I hated about that is you had to get up every midnight, check the fuel, check the water, and then then you can go back to bed.
And what was it called? Fuel and Water King?
King. You were in charge of all the fuel and all the water aboard the ship. You had to give reports to the commanding officer every day, so he knew what was available. And we had fuel and water tanks all over the ship.
And you're responsible for making sure they kept it. They didn't run out.
Right. And
At least you're out of the boiler room.
yeah, but we when we take on fuel, I was always the last one to get through with the fuel duty, because you always had to make sure everything was done right. And when we pull into a port later on, I was the last one off the ship because I had to make sure all the fuel tanks were ready and all the water tanks were ready and things like that. More responsibility you got, the less liberty you get.
Yeah.
So there we it was from there we went down to Anthoy, Prisoner of War Island, and it's also another riverboat place, and we took care of the riverboats down there. Then in the end of November, I think it was, we took off for Yokosuka, Japan. We were going for an overhaul.
This is 68 or 69?
The end of '68.
Yeah.
And we got one stop in Hong Kong, and the water there is so bad that we couldn't make it with our evaporators, so we had to buy water from the Red Chinese.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So polluted?
Oh, it's so polluted, everything would die over if you drank it. People over there drink it, but they're used to it. Us sailors would be so sick it would be funny. So we spent about 4 days in Hong Kong, and then we went to Yokosuka, went into the regular dry dock, and started offloading fuel, offloading the water, getting ready for a complete overhaul.
And where was this at again?
Yokosuka, Japan.
Japan. Okay.
And we were there for approximately 3 months. A complete overhaul. And on our way back, we ran into on our way there actually, we ran into a typhoon.
Oh, really?
And our ship only has a maximum speed of about 12 knots, which is about 13 miles an hour. One day we went, because of the storm, we lost 12 miles forward progress. That's how bad we were pushed back.
Wow.
Going full speed. And at the same time, one of the young firemen fell asleep at the evaporator, which makes the water for the ship.
Mm-hmm.
We got a couple of them. He fell asleep at this one, salted up the water tank beyond use. Because the water for the boilers is as pure as you can get it. Because they don't want no minerals in the boiler water, because it plugs up the tubes. And the water for the drinking, you don't want too much salt in there, people get sick. So we had to pump that out, had to clean the tank, flush the tank with good water, then rebuild the evaporator completely, because it was all salted up. When we pulled the bundle out, it looked like a chunk of salt. So it had to be completely redone. So then I had to turn off all the water to the unused people. So the first place water gets turned off to is officers' quarters because they don't do any work, get sweaty anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And they got air conditioning up there. So we turned off their water. Then we turned off the water to the mess decks, and everybody had sandwiches for a few days. And then turned off the shower water, and everybody started really getting stinky. And then the captain calls all hands on main deck to take showers. So you have about 350 guys up on the main deck with towel and bar of soap, including the old man. And he goes he drives the ship into the rain. We start soaking up, and rainwater is cold.
Mm.
You don't realize that. You figure out in the middle of the South Seas is going to be hot. Rainwater is cold.
Mm.
And we're all soaked up and everything, and all of a sudden the rain stops. He gets in the horn. Hold on, I'll turn the ship around. Turned the ship around, went back through so we could rinse off. So finally we had the water going again. That was one of the most uncomfortable couple of days I've ever spent.
Yeah.
But one thing about in the boiler room, we had steam-driven pumps, and so we'd loosen the packing on the pumps, and water would get the water to flow down into a bucket. We were taking bucket showers during the
There
day.
you go.
That was one of the advantages of being in the boiler room. So then we went back to Anthoy, and we were stationed there taking care of boats and things like that. We'd pick up the boats, put them on a pontoon, and the enginemen work on them, and guys would patch holes from being, bullet ridden. Because all them boats are made out of fiberglass, and bullet tears right through them real easy.
Yeah.
And then one day I got a call to take a group of VIPs and some Liberty guys over to Lung Tao. And the ship, the little boat I was on, a little landing craft, there's two engines and two little diesel engines, and one of them was being repaired. And I says, we only got one engine, the sea's pretty rough. And it's liable to overheat. I said, take them anyway. So we're going in, the water swells in the water 6-7 feet high. So we're going up and down like a cork out there. And all of a sudden my engine overheats. No engines. We're at the mercy of the thing. So there's a bunch of little islands before you get into the main island.
Mm-hmm.
And we got thrown up on some rocks. And a big rock came right through the well deck of the landing craft. And we weren't expecting to be in any hostile territory, so we don't carry weapons.
Yeah.
I had a knife on me, and a couple of guys had one or two pistols. That was about it. And so finally we started shooting off flares, hoping somebody would see us. Our last flare, they finally saw us. And they couldn't get to us because of the rocks. They said, well, go across the island. There's no rocks on that side, and we'll pick you up over there. So he says, don't worry, this is a deserted island. There's no one here. So we get going through the island. All these camps are on the island. I says, this don't look like deserted island to me. So we finally got over to the other end. And the boats couldn't come in because of the coral. The coral was about 3 feet below the water line. So some idiots decided to take their boots off and walk out. You don't walk on coral.
Yeah.
And they got all ripped up, and we were worried about sharks with blood. So I kept my boots on and kept my pants, on, and walking out, and I fell through the coral a couple times. Look, my pants looked like someone took razors and cut them. And so when I finally got aboard ship, I had to go to the sick bay, and they had to take and clean out every cut I had on my leg with alcohol, which is a lot of fun.
It wakes you up, huh?
Oh yeah, woke me up real good. And that was one of the scary moments, because it's supposed to be a deserted island, and you see campsites, and
Yeah.
and then you you get all cut up and you're worried about sharks. And we used to have a swim call on a pontoon, and there'd be two guys standing there with them 16s. The first time I seen it, I said, "What are them guys there for?" "Oh, to shoot the sharks in case they get near us." Didn't want to swim too much after that.
No.
But no, we then I got orders to go to New London, and
Well, before you go to New London, did you get any liberty while you were in Japan? Did you get to do any
oh yeah, I was
sightseeing?
in Yokosuka doing Liberty. We went to Yokohama for a couple days, and never made it to Tokyo. Yokosuka, we were always went to the local bars. And, our favorite one, we go to the EM Club, buy a bottle for like $2 or $3 back then, and then give Mama-san at the bar a couple dollars to keep it behind the bar for us. And we'd buy the soda from her. But we'd have our own bottle there, the name on it. You had 3 days to drink it up, and if you didn't, she got it. It was only $2 or $3 a bottle. Back then, I was drinking Seagram 7, and you drank back then. You just wanted to forget things, And but no, we were there. Actually, I got trouble once there. We used to. They used to say, "You want overnight pass?" Just stay, just a regular one. And then I met a girl over there and decided to go home with her. And got up in the morning, I'm already past muster. So when I found out no one called me in, because we used to call guys in all the time on one thing.
Right.
So they finally said, "Oh, you're AWOL, John." I said, "Okay." So I went and turned myself into the Marines at the gate. And so I would go up for captain's mass. There's like 25 of us up there, because everybody gets in trouble at Liberty. And so these guys are going, "Oh, I was late, I couldn't find a cab," and all kinds of lies,
Right.
just to try to. He's going 30 days extra duty, busting rank, forfeiture of pay for 30 days, and so he comes to me and says, "Schmidt, I see him every day."
Right.
So he says, "Schmidt, what's your problem?" "Well, sir, I went and got drunk, went and got laid, woke up in the morning, found out no one mustered me in, turned myself in at the gate." He says, "Okay, 10 days extra duty." The whole place started roaring up. He said, "He's the only one that told the truth."
Exactly.
Not much. I says, "I'm already caught. What more could I say?" And he was an old Mustang.
Oh.
He started off as a E2 in the Navy, and he's now a full commander, 3-striper. And
So what's a Mustang?
Mustang is a person that started out as an enlisted man, and then went on to become an officer. And one of the best types of officers to have, because you're not going to fool them. They know what's going on. And got along real good with him.
So you got orders?
Got orders to go to New London floating dry dock, and went home for 30 days. Then come back, flew into New London, flew from Detroit to Bradley to New London, and then got to New London and went to my floating dry dock there. And it was good duty. You only had to stand duty every 3 or 4 days, so it was great. And I took care of the pumps and the different equipment aboard the ship, aboard the dry dock.
Mm-hmm.
And we took in the fast attack submarines and the old diesel boats that were still left from other countries used, and we had a good time there.
What did you do during your 3 days when you weren't on duty?
Oh, when I say when you were on duty, you had to stay on board the ship.
Oh, I see. I see. You had like a 24-hour
Right.
duty on board ship. Oh, I see.
That's what every 3 days.
But you went to work every day.
Every day you still went to work. Yeah.
I see.
And like I said, that's what my job was, repairing and overhauling and things like that. Then when we bring in a sub, everybody be part of the gang that brought in the sub with the ropes and everything. We'd pull the sub in, he'd come down the things, make a turn, come line up with us, and we'd sink down, and he'd come in, and then we'd close the doors and pump out the water, and he would land on the blocks in the well deck.
That's been quite an experience.
It was very interesting. There, I started learning how to run a crane that takes the stuff from the dock onto the ships and stuff like that, or boats, and we did a lot of work like that. In fact, we did the Nautilus several times, and it was good. And in fact, I worked on Nautilus a couple of times, but never been inside of it. I didn't go inside of it till this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, down at the museum. First time I've been on in 40 years. It was interesting.
Wow, you remembered it though from when you.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Well, you know, it was got to be one of the most famous submarines in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was famous for.
What's that?
Why was it famous? Why?
Oh, it went underneath the ice cap. It was the first submarine ever to go underneath the ice cap. It was the first nuclear submarine. It had all kinds of firsts.
A lot of history.
Yeah. If you ever go down to the Nautilus Museum, it's a wonderful place to visit. And it's free. That's another thing I like about it.
And that's located in.
Right next door to Subbase in Bratton.
Okay. Yeah. So when you were, how long did your duty stay there at New? Is that when you got out? Was from New London or?
Well, I got out in New London, but I got transferred to the Barracks Master at Arms in New London, which was I was in charge of all the building for the sub base and sub school in New London, and I was holding like an E6 position. I was an E3.
Yeah.
And everybody that came in for sub school or anybody that was getting out of the service and had to go through their different positions, you know, their health, their records, and all that stuff. They had to come to me, and we'd go in working parties, and then we'd go up. Some of them we'd take them in parties, maybe 3 or 4. I'll go to the hospital, get their records. I'll go to records, and personnel, we got their records. Went to each place where if they had to turn in something, we took them there.
Mm-hmm.
That type of thing.
All the
Usually took them about a week to process out. So when I processed out, it took me about 4 hours. Because I just go to the headline everywhere.
You knew exactly what you were doing.
Right.
So can you remember the day when you processed out? What were you thinking? Was
I was a little scary because I didn't have a job from that point on. I was going to miss it, actually. But I had an old chief that made me kind of dislike the service because of him. He says you'll never make good theater because you care too much about your men and not enough about yourself. And I said, well, thank you. That's what I like that. He says you'll never make a good chief or anything like that. So I said, well, if that's the way you feel, I'm out of here. Well, when I found out later, they threw him out because of that. So it was. In fact, I went into reserves when I got out.
Navy Reserves?
Yeah, for about a year or so. And it was interesting. I was my reserve center was right over here in Hartford on by the Brainerd Airport, right down the street from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked and when I got out of there, I was going back home to Detroit. Actually, I went back home, and I'd gone on an interview before that for Connecticut Mutual in insurance company. I was going to work in their boiler room. I was number 2 person they wanted, and I didn't realize the first guy didn't want it. He got a better job offer. So I was in Detroit, and they called me up, and he said, "Job's yours if you want it." I said, "Sure." And I drove back here and took the job.
You ended up living here in Connecticut ever since then?
Ever since then, 40-something years. I got out in 72, so I've been here in Connecticut actually since 69.
Wow.
So I was in Groton.
Wow. So, and that's where you worked at ever since?
No, Connecticut Mutual. I got a golden hand. I worked for them for 16 and a half years. I got what they call the golden handshake. They gave me 20 years of service and full pension at age 51.
Nothing wrong with that.
None of that. They didn't want me to leave.
No.
Because I was one of the few guys that knew how to run their power plant. And they said, "You don't have to leave." Oh, yeah, I do. Before I left there, I already had another job in another power plant over here in Burlington, Connecticut, Corbin Rustwood. And
what year was that? That would have been
29 years ago.
29 years ago? Okay. All right. So
I had 23 at Corbin Rustwood, 16 and a half from, about that. 16 and a half at Connecticut Mutual, and then I had 23 plus at Corbin and Rustwood. And I've been retired 6 years now.
nice. So, did you use your GI Bill or anything?
Oh yeah, I went to school for my GA Bill. I was at Corbin Rustwood. In fact, me and my foreman, who was also a Navy man, I got my associate's degree in science from Tungus Community College in Farmington. And did a few more classes after that, but that was about it. I was going to become an environmental engineer until I found out what they made. Back then, I'd had to take a $10,000 cut in pay to become an engineer. I said, no sense doing that. I'm having a hard enough time on making one of them.
Yeah.
Then I found out they only worked on projects back then. And they'd work on a project for a couple of years, and then they'd be laid off for a couple of years until they found another project. Not a very good, way to make a living. So I just stayed as a boilerman. Made decent money.
Yeah.
And got a pension from Connecticut Mutual, got a pension from Corbin Rustwood, got Social Security, got my disability pension from the Department of Defense for Agent Orange and that.
And what was your exposure to Agent Orange? Was that aboard ships or?
On land and aboard ship. My ship was way in. It was in the harbor. It wasn't out to sea.
Mm-hmm.
I could. We were like a few hundred yards off mainland, and down in Vung Tau and Anthony, where they sprayed a lot down there, and didn't start bothering me till like 20-something years later, 30 years later, like most people.
But you knew at the time?
Actually, I didn't. Not until things started happening to me, and people say, "You sound like that Agent Orange." I never heard of Agent Orange.
Yeah.
And so then, when I got my disability, it was presumptive. Once you put your foot on land over there or close enough to the ocean, you didn't have to prove anything.
Right.
And I was on both. I was on land, and I was in Vung Tau and I was in Mantoy on land, so I didn't have to prove anything.
So, what organizations have you been involved with after you got out of service? You stay involved in any military organizations?
I belonged to the VFW since 1979.
1979 is when you got involved.
Right. Joined this post, Hannon Hatch. Went up to chair, became commander here 4 different times.
Commander of the VFW here. What is this post number 9929?
Right.
Yeah.
And then one of my my past commanders here, and a friend of mine for the last 30-something years, he was past state commander. And he said, why don't you go after becoming a state commander? Well, I says, well, the hours I work 12-hour days, 10-hour days, 15-hour days. I says, I ain't got much time for myself. Other than, I can be post commander, I can do things. I says, when I decided to retire, that's how I'm run up. So when I decided I was going to retire, about a year before I retired, became state surgeon, got elected to that. I was in charge of all the hospital visits and things like that for the VAs and nursing homes and VA over at Rocky Hill. Then I became district commander of District 3, which is the Hartford and Talon County areas. At the time, we had about 35 posts in the district. And from there, I went to junior vice commander of the Department of Connecticut for a year, then senior, and last year I was state commander at the VFW. And done a lot of work with them, did a lot of travel with them. Been to Washington, D.C. several times, been to Kansas City a couple of times, been to Pittsburgh, St. Louis.
All on behalf of the VFW?
All on behalf of the VFW.
Nice.
Been to Charlotte last year. In 2 weeks I'm going to New Orleans. This fall we're going to Portland, Maine for Eastern Conference. August I'm going to Cincinnati for National Commanders Homecoming. Just enjoyed myself being with friends. Made a lot of friends throughout the country. 50-something departments around the nation and the world. We got VFWs in Europe and in Asia and South America.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In fact, one of my guys I got to know, his post is in Japan, and another guy I got to know, his post is in Wiesbaden, Germany. He was commander with me. He was commander of Europe, and in my class last year, we had 5 different women as department commanders. Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Arkansas, Utah, and Maryland. And I'm glad to see a lot more women are taking part of it. In fact, the quartermaster general of the whole VFW, one in charge of all the money, she's a former Army major.
Oh, really?
Yep. And she, in fact, her husband's a PhD. And he writes books on the military.
Oh, really?
He's a retired major also.
Wow. I think I just have one more question for you. John, how do you feel your military experience, that 3 or 4 years, how many years was it?
4 years.
That 4 years, how do you feel that has impacted your life?
Well, without that service, I'd never gotten into the boiler room. And I wouldn't have had a very comfortable life. I'd have probably been working in some car company in Detroit area, and I'm not very good at doing repetitive stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stand it. In fact, some of the stuff I used to have to do for testing water, it was repetitive because you had to do it for different batches, and it got to be so boring after a while. You're doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. But I could never do that in a regular job. With the job I had, I'm always doing something different almost every day. Rebuilding a pump, rebuilding a motor, rebuilding the boiler, doing something different. And that's what I loved about my job. And without the Navy, I would have never gotten that experience.
Awesome.
I also, as far as my education, I also got to be, while I was working, I took classes and became a chief operating engineer with the National Association of Power Engineers. And that gave me I could have gone on and, to different companies if I wanted to. I could have started my own little business and did power plant repair and stuff like that. But once I got retired, I just wanted to do veteran stuff. That's all I've been doing since.
Right.
Helping veterans in the hospitals. And in fact, this year my job is VAVS, is Voluntary Veteran Service for Newington VA.
Oh,
I meet with the people over to Newington VA, help them run programs over there for the different veterans. We do a bingo for them. We do some of the guys in the programs for alcohol and drugs. We do miniature golf or bowling. We take them out and feed them and let them have some fun and things like that. We keep them busy. We keep them focused on how to recover and be a better person.
Awesome.
And that's what I love doing.
You keep busy.
Well, the last 5 years, I probably only taken a couple weeks off a year for myself.
Yeah.
When I was state commander, I was on the road maybe 5-6 days a week,
Really?
visiting places, going to meetings. I had wonderful experiences. I've met everybody from every congressman we've got. I've met presidents of corporations, commissioners, governors, corporate people from Sheridan. Got to sit in the skybox at the Greater Hartford Open and overlooking the 15th green, the 18th tee. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that if you want to watch some golf.
Yeah.
And get all the food and drinks and everything you want. I've been to, like I say, all over the country, St. Louis and Kansas City. It's
Wow.
just wonderful being in these places and meeting different people from all over the country and making friends. Even my girlfriend, who started out not wanting to go to these things, she says, I kicked myself in the butt now for not going with you. She says, since I started going with you, she said, I met people from all over the country, and we've driven all over the country or flew all over the country and just enjoyed ourselves and had fun. And then we continue, even now we're going to continue doing that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, John, I want to thank you for taking the time, allowing me to interview you, and I want to thank you for your service and for the way you're continuing to serve many years later.
Thank you.